StudySync 101. This is a review of the platform, pointing out a few things that have changed perhaps since you received your implementation training. Please note that accommodations and modifications will be addressed more fully in StudySync 102. And as questions come up, please type them into the chat so that we're sure to address them. So what will we be doing today? Our agenda today includes managing your class rosters, setting StudySync account settings and the resources that are available in the Help Center, setting language proficiency and support languages for your students, finding the distance learning units, and then assigning and reviewing student work. At the end of each section, we will pause and address any questions that come up. So let's get started. To get to StudySync, we start at the staff applications page from the MCS homepage. And a reminder that you will not find StudySync listed as an app. StudySync lives in the Connect Ed platform, and so you need to select Connect Ed to get to StudySync. Again, it's housed in the Connect Ed platform, so again, we would need to click on either the logo or the title, California StudySync ELA with ELD, to get to our content. However, before we get there, we want to make sure that you know how to remove students who have perhaps had a schedule change since the beginning of the semester when your classes were rostered. And so to do that, we start by clicking on Manage and Assign on this page, which will bring up this bottom screen, and you'll want to look at My Classes. Okay. When you click on that My Classes tab, all right, you will have a drop-down menu over here on the right, which will list all of your classes. Now, I am lucky that in my test class, I only have 2 students, Draymond and Clay. And if, for instance, Draymond moves from my class into Rachel's class, StudySync imports Connect Ed, they roster my students. They do not remove students if they have a schedule change. So even though he is no longer in my class, he would show up on my class until I remove him. So make sure that you have perhaps your PowerSchool roster handy when you go to remove students. We can get them back. It's kind of a pain. So just be sure if you remove a student that you really truly want to. And so you would need to do that for each of your classes. They will all be listed on this drop-down menu. To get back into StudySync, we need to click on the Connect Ed that's up in the top right-hand corner. Okay. And where's my next slide? Here it is. This will bring us back to the Connect Ed page where, as I mentioned earlier, we click on the StudySync logo or title, which brings up this page where we first selected Manage and Assign, but this time instead we will indeed go into launching California StudySync ELA with ELD. And when we do that, it will populate our screen with the StudySync homepage. Anytime you're working in the program, you can click on the StudySync logo in the top left-hand corner, and it will return you to this homepage. Okay. The first thing that we want to review today are all of the teacher account settings. And to find those, we click on the drop-down arrow next to our name in the top right-hand corner. And that drop-down menu looks like this. Notifications, if StudySync populates something, sends out a message, you would have a little bell next to your name. Where we want to spend a little more time is looking at the settings feature, and a few things here actually have changed. So first, you can change how you want your name to appear to your students. Do you want to be Amy Phillips or Mrs. Phillips or Queen of the Land? Whatever you type here as the nickname will show up for your students. Okay. Next, on the assignments page, in the assignments settings, we recommend that you do not allow student nicknames, but that you do allow for Google Docs to integrate, and you allow students to have access to all of the features that are in a Google Doc for their writing assignments. We're going to skip a few and go down to audio descriptions. Now, this is new for everyone since implementation training. This allows you to set the browser speech instead of using the screen reader. Now, when I first discovered this, the speech rate was set at 1.5, and that just seemed a little fast to me. And so I just kept playing with it and testing the browser speech settings until I found what was comfortable for me. And I decided that 1 was best, and the speech volume was fine. That was easy enough to manage just on my device. And last, you do want to make sure that you link your teacher MCS Google account with StudySync. When students submit assignments, it will also create a folder in your Google Drive. We'll get more into that in 102. All right. The last thing to mention on the teacher drop-down menu for this is the Help Center. Now, when you click on the Help Center, it does open a new window. It's not a new tab, and sometimes it gets really big on my screen. And anyway, so there are some key things here I just want to point out to you. If you're having an issue with just a certain aspect of StudySync, you can get help with first read or skill lessons or something, and you can type it in the search bar and they will find what they can for you. You can attend webinars. They are also putting out training right now in this time of distance learning. But the Help Center is set up in really basically 3 sections. At the top is training. You can go through the 22 short videos that they have. Most of the videos are 2 to 4 minutes long. You can go through the basic training, knowing that some of these items may not apply to Modesto City Schools because we do have the single sign-on, and some of those deal with rostering students and adding students to classes, which we don't need to worry about. In the middle of the page are the resources, and here you can see the top 3 on my screenshot of the tutorial videos, the user guide PDFs, and the best practices. And so below that, also you will have teaching lab videos, ideas for blended learning, past issues of the Sync Up newsletter that always have something really valuable, or perhaps just something you hadn't thought of before. They have a great teacher feature. And below that is a section for questions and answers, where you can find frequently asked questions, or actually go into a chat with someone on StudySync from their platform. However, Rachel and I do ask that you contact us if you're having a problem, because perhaps it is more widespread. It's not just one teacher having a problem. And so we can, navigate those larger issues if it's something that is affecting the whole district. Okay. So this is, again, a new window. So you would close that window and it would bring you back to your home page in StudySync. Are there any questions about the teacher settings or about removing students from your class roster? No? I'm waiting for Rachel or Scott to chime in.
This is Rachel. Amy, I don't see any questions being typed in at this time.
Okay. I didn't want to go beyond. So next, let's move into looking at the language supports and the language proficiency levels. So to do that, we want to go into the users page. And to do that, we click on users at the top. Remember, users are our students and our classes. And when we do that, we get a list of our classes. And what we will want to do is select one class and then go to group membership. When we go to group membership, we'll see all of the students listed in that class. And here in the middle of that screen, we see that there are both proficiency levels that we can assign student by student, and also support languages that we can assign student by student. Excuse me, it's important to note that you have to do this, as I said, student by student. You cannot assign every student in your class all at one time the emerging English learner support. You have to click student by student. So your options here are none. Perhaps the student is on grade level and does not need any scaffolded support. For our English learners, we have our three: emerging, expanding, and bridging. Emerging and expanding have some pretty robust sentence frames for students and some pretty robust supports, as they are English learners and need that assistance to meet our grade level standards. The bridging level for English learners and the approaching level for universal access have few, if any, language or sentence frames. They are more guides and hints of what to do along the way. And StudySync has just started with the Beyond level for our honors students. It's listed here, but when you actually get into the program, they are, like I said, just starting adding those. You won't find much at this point. I know that having talked to some teachers, when they start a school year or when they come back to StudySync, perhaps after teaching their novel, they assign all students the emerging scaffold so that students have an idea of what a solid, complete answer looks like, and it kind of sets the expectation for answers in StudySync. The support language, there are about 6 options right now. Spanish and Cantonese, I believe, are complete in grades 6 through 12. And what this does is it provides a summary that can be read or listened to in audio. It's just a summary of a reading assignment. So when I believe it's 8th grade reads The Telltale Heart, the students would have a summary, a 1-paragraph summary of this is what this story is about, to give students just kind of somewhere to start. It also would allow for parents to read or listen to the topic of the story so that perhaps the parents can continue to ask questions about the content that the students are getting in their ELA class. So when you are in this screen setting the proficiency and support languages for your students, it's important to note the course numbers for your S2 classes. When you are back on that Manage and Assign page and removing students, you want to make sure that you're looking at your S2 classes. And on that Manage and Assign page, this right here, that group of numbers will tell you that it's your current classes, not last year's semester 2 class. Are there any questions about setting the proficiency or support languages for our students? All right, I'm guessing not.
No, actually, Amy, we have one that just came in.
Okay.
So can you clarify when we talk about assigning an emerging scaffold, what that will provide to the students?
Okay, so if we set the proficiency at emerging, for example, so Clay Thompson has the emerging scaffolds. Then on think questions, well, throughout an assignment, on the left-hand side of the screen, there is a slide in that would provide additional vocabulary support for the students. On reading selections, it will provide some additional things to highlight or questions. For Sync TV videos, it would provide stop points to clarify what's happening in the video. For think questions, it would provide a sentence frame that the students would kind of fill in the blank with information that would complete the answer. For the writing tab, it would provide a paragraph frame that would help the students access the material.
Thank you, Amy. And I've also let our participants know in the chat window that we'll showcase this with screenshots more thoroughly in StudySync 102.
Yes. So we hope to see you all back tomorrow or Thursday. Okay, so now that we've set our students with the support they need to access our grade level content, let's move on to the distance learning units and use them to review how to assign and review student work. So we click on that StudySync logo in the top left-hand corner of our screen and go to the library tab, and then click on units, because these units do not live in the text section of the library. All right, we need to go to units. The key term is distance, and when you type that in as you're typing, then these units should populate. And Modesto City Schools has put together distance learning units for grades 6 through 12 for those classes that use StudySync as their core text. All right, so let's go in. I'll go through that one more time. I know that's something that we got asked about yesterday. So again, you'll go into StudySync, you'll search the library, search units, use the key term distance, and that should bring up the 6 units. Or, yeah, 6 units. I know that ALD is listed here. I know they're working on that one. It is not yet complete. So to look at reviewing how to assign, each unit has a unit overview that is the same. It says that these units were created with distance learning in mind during this COVID shelter in place that we are experiencing right now. All of the assignments here have already had some changes made to them. So let's take a look. The instructional path, instead of being set up by the selection titles, it's set up week by week. There are 5 assignments in each week, thinking that the students would do, excuse me, 30 to 40 minutes of ELA a day. All right, so to see what the assignment looks like, we click on the preview to see what is here already. And then if we like it, or if we see that there are some things that need to change, we go to assign. And when we click on the assign button, the screen will pop up telling us that what we're looking at assigning is a blast, and the blast title. The assignment name is how it would show up in what StudySync considers its grade book. You do need to assign a target, and if, for example, you have more than one 7th grade language arts class, you can assign to more than one class at a time. You need to select the start and end date and determine whether or not you want to allow for late work. And last, on this screenshot, you need to determine whether or not for the blast you want to turn on the research links. Now, if you do choose to turn them on, please check them out and make sure that they're still active and live and appropriate. And also consider what you want the students to do with that information. All right, below the research links is the customize button. And if you want to customize further, then you can put in your own instructions, your own teacher's note to the students. See that this, you can see that this one has been modified, telling the students exactly what to do, what you want them to accomplish, and it here provides that sentence frame for all students. There is not an answer key for a blast. You can choose whether or not to change the Lexile level for all students. And then before you create the assignment, you do want to preview and make sure that you have spelled everything correctly in the teacher's note, that you have this assignment exactly the way that you want it. And then you have the opportunity to indeed create the assignment. All right. Once the assignment is created and students have had a chance to complete it, how do you review what they have done? So we're going to go back to our StudySync homepage. Again, you click on those on the logo at the top, or just go straight to assignments. The assignments are housed all together. You do not have a separate tab for each class, but you can sort by class or by target, as StudySync calls them. And you can sort by the date, you can sort by the name, lots of options there. And to actually see what the students have turned in, you click on the title of the assignment you want to review. So I see here right now that I have one assignment that has been completed but none have been reviewed. So I have something to look at. So when I click on the title of the assignment, it pulls up just everything that I have so far, who I assigned it to, what the max score is, how many students received the assignment, and how many students have submitted. So to see what Clay's little guy's getting it all done real quick. If I want to see what he has done, again, I click on that orange timestamp that tells me when he submitted his assignment. So when I click on the timestamp, it pulls up his report. All right, it tells me which student I am working with at this time. It tells me his response to the blast. All right, I can also look at what he chose for his quick poll. Here and important right now is a chance for us to give our review to the student about their responses, students about their responses. And we can give the rating 1 to 5. And now if I think that this is a great response for Clay, I can move on to the next student and that will save this review, or I can reopen it and say, you know, Clay, I think you can do a lot better. You had 140 characters, you only used 72. Let's see if you can't do a little more. You know, it's just really up to you as the teacher. Do you want to reopen it? He still had time. He submitted it on the 28th. It's not due until the 4th. It's not going to be late. Do I reopen it for Clay, or do I move on to the next student and let my review stand? So once I have gone through the students who have submitted their work, I can see my assignment report. Okay, so both Draymond and Clay have assigned. I have reviewed and scored both of them. And so pretty much here, all right, I am done. I have my title. I see that there were 2 students who were assigned this blast. 2 students were submitted. I'm all good, all done. Are there any questions about scoring or reviewing student work?
Amy, this is Rachel. A couple of questions have come in. I'll start with the most recent. Where will the students see their teacher response? Do they get some sort of alert that the teachers provided feedback?
So the students would need to go into their binder. When students open StudySync, it opens first to what they have due, what they need to complete. And across the top for them, they would go into their binder, and when they open their each assignment, they would be able to see the comments that were made.
And I'm going to add in that in tomorrow or Thursday in the StudySync 102, we're going to take a look at some of the resources that are available on Schoology. And one is a video that can be shared with parents and students that takes them through the student StudySync platform. So if you need to be able to show students and parents how to see that feedback, you can share that video. Another question that came in was, let me go back and find it again. Hang on a second. Whether or not these distance units were already completed for teachers in the next 3 to 5 weeks. And so I put an answer in the chat, so I'll just read that, and Amy, then you can add in if you want to, that these distance learning units have been created for teacher use, that in the next webinar, or the next 2 days, StudySync 102, we'll talk about how to further customize these lessons to meet the range of student needs.
So I put up on your screens in StudySync and Distance Learning 102. Yeah, we will be covering the scaffolds for English learners and special education students. We'll go more into the Google Doc integration options and explore the distance learning units a little more. Again, today was about just getting familiar again with StudySync with the platform.
All right, are there any additional questions? If so, go ahead and add them to the chat window.
Yes, there is one. I'm saying, is there a way to alert students to see their grade and our response?
So I will look into that. But once the student submits the work, it goes into the student binder, and I will check to see how the students, what it looks like on the student end once assignments have been reviewed.
And this is Rachel. I will add on that and as I'm sure we've all been doing, reading quite a bit about what distance learning might look like. One of the key pieces that I've taken away is the importance of communicating clear expectations and consistent expectations with communication. So it might be worth considering, if it's not possible for the students to get an alert that there is feedback on their work, that there's some sort of schedule laid out about when students should expect to go back and find feedback.
So if you have a question, again, please put it in the chat box. Rachel and Scott and I thank you very much for your time this morning. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. In a little while, I'm not sure if it'll be today or tomorrow, but you will receive this slide deck and perhaps also a link to see this webinar again on the MCS homepage or IT page. Scott, you can address that perhaps since you're our tech guy today.
Sorry, can you phrase that question one more time for me?
When will teachers be able to see this webinar and follow along again?
Oh, so it should be up later this afternoon, and it'll be in the distance learning section for ELA under StudySync.
Okay. Thank you.